Welcome back to another episode of the YogaLee podcast. I'm Vanessa, and today I want to explore why being broken up can leave you hurt for months, maybe even years. So, have you ever noticed that some breakups seem to hit much harder than others? You can move on from one relationship fairly quickly, but another can leave you questioning yourself for many months ahead. If you've ever found yourself playing the role of the rescuer or the fixer or the person who gives more than they normally receive, there may be a reason why certain breakups feel especially painful. Because often, breakups that hurt the most isn't where you necessarily loved the hardest. It's the one where you invested the most of yourself trying to earn the love. People with rescuing tendencies are particularly vulnerable to that pain, and they will find it hard to try and find closure from their ex because most of the time they probably won't find it if they have an ex that usually takes all their energy. So let's start with the most obvious part of the breakup: rejection. When someone ends a relationship with us, rejection is usually the first emotion that comes up. But rejection alone isn't always what creates the deepest pain. The real hurt often comes from what the rejection seems to mean. Many overgivers go into relationships carrying an unconscious belief. They believe that if love is enough, support enough, sacrifice enough, and prove their value enough, they'll eventually be chosen. So when the relationship ends, it doesn't just feel like losing a partner. It feels like all of that effort wasn't enough. And that's why a breakup can feel so personal. It's not just they left. It's I gave everything I had and they still left. Now, if you're someone who naturally rescues people, there's another trap that often appears. Many of us confuse being needed than being loved. We become the helper, the supporter, the problem solver, the person that everyone relies on. And at first, that role can feel good. Helping people gives us a sense of purpose, and that makes us feel valuable. But beneath it all can be a belief that sounds something like this: if I do enough for someone, they will love me. I learned this lesson the hard way. I once dated someone where I spent much of that relationship giving. I paid for everything, I adjusted my schedule around him, I supported his ambitions, I tried to encourage the best out of him, I constantly tried to make his life easier. But when that relationship ended by him, I was devastated. Not because the relationship had been perfect, but because deep down, I believed all my efforts should have been resulted into a different outcome. And that's when I realized something important. I wasn't actually grieving the relationship. I wasn't even grieving him. I was grieving the belief that my sacrifice should have made me irreplaceable. For many people, that's the hidden wound beneath the breakup. You feel like you failed. You feel foolish for choosing the wrong person. And you feel frustrated because you gave so much and received so little in return. But perhaps most painful of all is that you feel unseen. And you wanted them to recognize your loyalty. You wanted them to appreciate all your support that you gave them. You wanted them to acknowledge everything that you did for them. And when that recognition doesn't come back, you find yourself desperately seeking and searching for validation. I remember years after we had broken up this ex, I eventually discovered that he had launched an online series cooking thing on Instagram, using the idea that I gave him. And I was really angry. I was like, I remember telling my therapist about it. And then I realized that it wasn't because I wanted him back, because I couldn't understand, like, do I want him back? No, I don't. It wasn't because I wanted him back. Because I felt unacknowledged. I wanted recognition for my contribution. I wanted proof that what I had given had mattered. And when I discussed this with my therapist, I came to an uncomfortable realization. I was still looking to him to validate my worth. I still wanted confirmation that I mattered, and I mattered in the past. And the truth was that my worth was never his responsibility to confirm. And that brings us to what healthy love actually looks like, because healthy love is very different from rescue love. Healthy love doesn't require you to prove yourself. It doesn't require endless sacrifice. It doesn't demand that you earn your place in someone's life. Healthy love is two whole people choosing each other freely. You don't need to become indispensable. You don't need to fix someone. You don't need to save them. You simply just need to be yourself. The strongest relationships aren't built on how much one person gives to the other person. They're built on mutual respect, mutual effort, and emotional safety. So how do we begin to heal after we've been broken up with? Well, the first step is awareness. You can't change a pattern if you haven't even recognized. Ask yourself some honest questions. Was I trying to earn love? Did I believe my value came from what I could do for someone else? Was I giving because I genuinely wanted to, or because I hoped it would make me worthy for being chosen? If I'm a natural rescuer, did all of that simply feel normal to me? And the last question is really important. Many rescuers don't realize they're overgiving because it feels completely familiar to them. Looking after other people, solving their problems, putting their needs first, being the reliable one. And for many people, that's just who they've always been. In fact, it can feel so normal that they don't notice that their own needs slowly begins to disappear from their relationship. What feels like love may actually be the role that you've been playing for years. And until you recognize that pattern, you will continue making the same mistake, being needed for being loved. Real healing begins when you stop looking to the person who hurt you for validation and start building it within yourself, because closure doesn't come from getting the apology. It doesn't come from them finally appreciating everything that you did for them. And it doesn't come from them suddenly recognizing your value. Closure comes from understanding that your worth was never dependent on their ability to see it. And once you begin to understand that, something begins to shift, because your value was never determined by whether they stayed. The lesson isn't to stop loving deeply, it's to stop measuring your worth by how much someone else is willing to love you back. And the moment you stop trying to learn, love is often the moment you begin creating relationships built on mutual choice rather than sacrifice. I hope that you have found and liked this week's episode of the YogaLee podcast. I'd love to hear your comments, so please drop your comments and let me know your thoughts on this topic. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in next week's episode.